We're seeing strong gains for the major equity averages on this Friday. The Dow posted a triple-digit gain, and the S&P 500 and Nasdaq were also higher by over 0.5%. So joining us at the end of a wild week is Tim Anderson of TJM Investments. Tim, great to have you here today.
It's great to talk to you.
Well, it's been a risk-on as well as risk-off week, and we saw a lot of action across all of the markets. So what do you expect to see heading into next week?
Well, I think that just looking at this week for a second, the very sharp move down on Wednesday was very much like the very sharp move down we had right after the initial health care bill failed, or they didn't bring it up for a vote. And then we grinded our way higher. The market had been acting great until the 2 days in a row of political news out of Washington. Finally, people just decided, sell first, ask questions later. And we had about a 1.5% to 2% correction. And now we've recovered over half of that. So I would expect that he will probably outperform expectations on this trip, and the market will probably act pretty well going into Memorial Day weekend and the end of the month.
And as you mentioned, we are continuing to watch technical levels for the major equity averages given the sell-off we saw on Wednesday. And of course, we'll monitor any developments that come out from Washington, D.C., whether it's from the Trump administration or from Capitol Hill. But as we head into the upcoming week, we'll continue to monitor what happens in terms of fundamentals and technicals. But we also have the OPEC meeting coming up, and we know what is expected. But what do you expect to see?
Well, we had news overnight or early this morning also that now Russia's going to agree with OPEC on some production cuts, allegedly. That's the headline. We know, of course, that Venezuela will pump as much oil as they possibly can, and if they need to sell it at $35 a barrel to Somali pirates, they will, because they're in OPEC, but they're dying for cash. They won't live up to the agreement. But oil is up 2% today, and that's probably helping the market a little bit also. We have to see if oil can hold that $48, $50 level. And I think the thing that would concern people would be if it had a sharp correction down below 45.
And I think that's a great point you bring up in terms of oil prices. Both WTI and Brent are up 2% as we head into the close. And that is important, especially given what we've talked about in terms of rotation. So as we look at earnings in terms of what we got this week and what we expect in terms of going forward in terms of growth and guidance, what are you watching right now in terms of sectors?
Well, the rotation, I'm really glad you mentioned that, because we've had this continual, intense, very vibrant rotation that's gone through the market since the election, now 6 months ago. So we had this giant Trump trade where you had tremendous move in infrastructure stocks and financials, and a lot of that has been given back. And now I think you're going to start to see a rotation back into some of those names. Like the financials have given back a large portion of their gains, but I think some very smart people have been getting into the financials in the last week or so. Infrastructure stocks have given back some of their gains. U.S. Steel all the way back down to the $19, $20 level as we go in really now 5 weeks until the end of the second quarter and the first half of the year.
Okay, Tim. Well, it's hard to believe we're nearing Memorial Day, but we are, and indeed we will be looking at the end of the second quarter soon. So thank you so much for your insight as always, and have a great weekend.
It's great talking to you.